Dude, who parked this last? This motor's not gonna last. Hey guys, welcome back to another video. Spence here at Core 4x4. Now we have the JK in the studio and we just finished the long arm upgrade. And if you haven't seen those videos, go back and check them out. But I'm kind of tired of cutting brackets, grinding, welding, all that. It's been pretty intensive on our YouTube channel recently. So today we're gonna do a much simpler install and do our 2.5 ton steering upgrade on the JK. When we were under there, I noticed it's pretty beat up. It's time to get it swapped out. We have a steel tie rod under there. We're gonna step up to the aluminum. So yeah, let's get the Jeep in the air and let's get started. Okay, a couple things before we get into teardown is I'm gonna take a few measurements so that our install and alignment goes a lot smoother. This is strictly an off-road rig, so we don't care too much about having a perfect alignment. But the measurements I care about before I start taking things apart is our bolt-to-bolt on the drag link here. So we can at least get close on the steering wheel. This is what centers your steering wheel. And then our bolt-to-bolt as well on the tie rod, so we can get our toe set straight. But the most important thing, I don't want to really have to reset. If you notice, this has a hydro assist from PSC on it. The same will go if you have just a factory dampener or a steering stabilizer of any sort. I don't want to reset center on this. So I'm going to pull a couple measurements, one from our passenger side tie rod bolt to where our mount is on the tie rod, as well as how much shaft we have. Don't get dirty, takes time. There's no other word for it, man. I'm also going to place a small mark on the shaft to show how far we are exposed on the hydro assist here. So just want to do all that before we start ripping into it, and then once we have all those measurements, I'll write them down so we can set it up a lot easier when we go back to install, and then yeah, we'll just start taking things off. Now on tie rods, sometimes you have a Zerk fitting, and they center those on the tie rods all the time, so it's a little easier to measure Zerk to Zerk as opposed bolt to bolt, so that's what I'm going to do. And the Zerk also holds your tape measure if you're doing this by yourself. Just know you're not going to get center to center. I always go outside to inside. Now the kit comes with a clamp for your factory stabilizer. Any aftermarket stabilizer will fit it as well. It's a single shear clamp, just like this one. We're gonna upgrade because we have the hydro assist. In this video, we're gonna upgrade to a double shear clamp. So when we go to install, I'll show you what that looks like. But the kit will come with the clamp that's built for your factory stabilizer. I normally use a socket to get this off. Because of the nature of steering, we could be fighting this today. So we've sprayed penetrating fluid, but because the taper fit and steering, if you've ever taken it off, it could be difficult. Okay, so tie rod was easy. There we go. Cross your fingers. Okay, good. So because we did aftermarket axles on this Jeep, all three of these ends have been off already, so that was pretty easy to get apart. I am worried about the pitman arm. That has not been removed because this is the factory drag link. So in our JL video, like I said, we struggled with this for like an hour and a half. All right, luckily we didn't need any heat. The pickle fork did the trick, which I totally forgot we had. So highly recommend one of those, especially for the pitman arm bolt or nut. But when we did the steering kit on the JL, we had to use heat, which is also an option if you don't have a pickle fork. Okay, so before we set our measurements, I did want to just show the difference. So this is our factory drag link, and this is the new 2-inch 7075 aluminum. So I'm excited to get this on the JK. It does see a lot of rocks. Luckily, I haven't bent the tie rod yet. Okay, so our drag link measurement was 40 3/4. And anytime you're measuring suspension parts, you only care about bolt to bolt when you're doing steering and you have tie rods, you can't go bolt to bolt because of the movement here. Now, these are machined left and right hand threaded, so you can't adjust this on the Jeep. Between each of the jam nuts and the body of the tie rod and the drag link, we include these thrust washers, which is a tapered serrated washer. So this washer is designed to collapse and apply pressure. Even though jam nuts are always solid and always secure, if they come loose on our steering, it's worst case scenario, and we don't want that. So thrust washers are included to bite into the aluminum and really lock that jam nut down. But yeah, let's throw these on. All right, so we got the drag link bolted in on the pitman arm side, and before we did the knuckle side, I did want to talk about the flip kit option for flipping the drag link to mount on top of your knuckle. Now, this is done so you can run your drag link higher in order to also run a higher tie rod setup to get more ground clearance. We're not going to do that on this JK because the Rock Jock 70s are kind of already built that way and it's not really necessary. But if you do that, you do need to consider that you will need to raise your track bar mount as well, because it's very important to have your track bar and your drag link parallel so that when your suspension cycles, it cycles properly and prevents any bump steer. So if you are doing that, we do offer a flipped option where we include the drill bit and the tapered sleeve to do that. We also assemble your drag link with a different end so it mounts properly. As you can see, this one has an outward bend to mount under. If you do the flip kit, it does come with a completely different tie rod end already assembled when you order it to mount on top. Everything's mocked up. Before we do any of our measurements, we are going to torque everything down just so there's no play in the steering and we can get an accurate measurement. The torque spec on all these is 75 foot-pounds, and then you want to turn it to line up with your cotter pin hole. And then also the jam nuts on these are 200 foot-pounds. We do have the thrust washers, and we will mark our jam nuts to see if they moved on us, and then we'll line up our hydrosis and get that all bolted on. All these ends, you also need a 3/4 inch socket. There we go. So, torque wrenches, you heard that click? Not this, that click. Yeah. That's like a thing. Everybody loves that sound. Oh, there we go. Jeez. I did say 200 foot-pounds on the jam nuts. They are actually 250 because they're an 1.25 inch thread. So 250 is really hard to get on a torque wrench. So honestly, you need to go as tight as you can with whatever you have. A cheater bar usually helps. And then I would paint mark, and we'll do this. We'll paint mark our jam nuts to see if they move on us. We're going to check them after 100, 200 miles of driving, or if we do we'll probably do a wheeling video. So we'll take it wheeling, and we're going to check it after every time we go off-road. But once these are seated, 250 foot-pounds, or as tight as you can get them, these thrust washers will do their job and keep everything tight and won't move on you. So I highly recommend a crow's foot attachment for your cheater bar, or if you have a breaker bar like this, using a crow's foot and this can really get it tight enough. The jam nut size is 1 3/4 inches. Our biggest crow's foot here in the studio is 1 5/8 inches. So we're going to knock it out with our channel locks here. Get it as tight as we can. I'll probably still order another crow's foot just because it really gets the job done right. But we'll get it tight, we'll mark it up, and we'll see how it sits after wheeling. I like the thrust washers because you can watch as you tighten them down, they will flatten out and bite into the aluminum. So even though our torque spec is 250, our thrust washers are going to do most of the work. So here's what I was talking about before. This is the difference between the two clamps. This is our single shear, which is good for your steering stabilizer. But if you have a hydro assist setup like this, I recommend ordering the double shear. This is just a lot stronger, can take the weight. The single shear that we had on here before did fine, we had no issues, but I just feel better with the double shear bracket on it, and that is an option on the kit. So the last thing we gotta do is get this clamped on, and we have our measurement, so we're not gonna have to do any fine tuning. But if you are setting up with your factory stabilizer or an aftermarket stabilizer, you do wanna find the middle range, and you can watch our first video on this on the JL, we really get into it. But you wanna find the full travel of your stabilizer and set it in the middle with both your tires pointed straight forward. Now, if you do that, your stabilizer isn't gonna limit your steering range. You can be off a little bit, but if you're off a lot, you'll be able to turn further one way than the other way. But on this, we have a measurement that was set up, that worked already, and we're just gonna measure, yeah, we're just gonna do it. I've got way too many volts. So these stabilizer clamps or hydro assist clamps, they're a tight fit on the 2-inch, especially with the powder. If you get the raw aluminum, it's a little easier to do this. So all I'm doing here is I'm alternating between the front and back of the clamp on the center bolt to really pull it together. And then I will tighten the remaining 4 bolts. And you do want to alternate to get everything tight, much like lug nuts. So just make sure to tighten everything evenly. And also on the bottom of the clamp, there's a little set screw just to apply additional pressure to make sure everything's set. We will tighten that down once we get the clamp secure. All right, so that wraps it up for the 2.5-ton steering upgrade on the Wrangler JK. Again, these are available for the JL and the JT with or without the hydro assist clamp. Fantastic upgrade. The 7075 aluminum, you hit this on a rock, it's bouncing right back. You're not losing your toe. So as always, guys, we appreciate you watching. If you have any questions, please comment down below or reach out to our sales team. And if you like what we're doing, please like and subscribe because that really helps us out. And we'll see you in the next one.